It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater, and welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. So, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you joining in today, you are really here for an amazing treat. For those who do not know this, we are in the midst of our nonprofit leadership series. It is one of my favorite times of the year. I am tickled pink to say that we have done this every year of Her Success Story, and this is our 7th year. So it's our 7th nonprofit leadership series. We highlight the leaders of nonprofits, men and women, people who are out there in the world making a difference, staking a claim, and giving back and helping the pathway for so many people and areas in this world that are so important. One thing I will say in the nonprofit series, we have done large nonprofits, we've done small nonprofits. Nonprofits, it doesn't matter the size. What matters is that we lean in, we learn, and we share forward. Another interesting thing that we're mentioning this year during the nonprofit series is number one, if this conversation with Kathleen and Aisling is interesting to you, share it forward so the message gets out. We're going to be talking about hopefullhandbags.org today. And if you're so driven, we do less than 10 in this series, probably about 8. $10 per nonprofit is less than a meal out in this day and age. And it makes a ripple impact if every listener just shared $10 with every nonprofit. So think about sharing forward. Now, let me introduce our guest to you. Kathleen Miner is the founder of Hopefull Handbags, a nonprofit 501c3, raising hope for those getting back on their feet again due to domestic abuse and other challenging situations, beginning with one hopeful handbag at a time. She is also the best-selling author. On the personal side, Kathleen is a mom of 4, a grandmother of 3. And so this is going to be a real down-to-earth, women-to-women conversation. Aisling Owens Nash is the founder of The Right Room, an event experience architect. Most importantly, no disrespect to Aisling, the executive director of Hopefull Handbags Global, the president of Hopefull Handbags Global Ireland. These women are doing amazing work and impacting women and people all over the globe. So welcome today to Her Success Story, and thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you. Great to be here.
Kathleen, let's jump in at the beginning.
Okay.
How in the world, this got started, if I remember correctly, around 2017?
Absolutely, it did. So just to take you back a little bit, I'll make this kind of condensed, but my mother grew up in a very abusive home. So my grandfather not only abused my grandmother, but all of the children. We lived across the street from my grandparents when I was little. We lived down in South Florida, and I never understood until I got a little bit older as to why we lived across the street. So my mom has a lot of siblings. She has some that were mine and my sister's age. And so they were still living across the street. My mom is a very much of a caregiver type of a personality. So she was there to make sure everybody else that was in the house was still okay. So I just remember the days, I remember being 5 years old even, and my aunt and uncle, who are our age, running across the street saying, "You've got to come help, you've got to come help." And then they would come back to our house. We would be sitting there on the chain link fence, looking across the street, just waiting for all the chaos to die down. And the one thing I always thought was, number one, I know this isn't normal because I don't live this way across the street. People aren't getting hurt. We're not yelling. None of this stuff. I mean, there's no bruises on people over here. But I also never understood why my grandmother stayed. I just did not understand that because I was like, just leave. How hard can this be? And that's what I remember thinking when I was little. And I just have to mention this too. I mean, my mom had me when she was 15. My dad was 17. They're still together. They are the most amazing people. And they've been basically just caregivers for whoever needs it, right? It always stuck with me. I raised my 4 kids. I went and got certified to be a domestic abuse advocate with that same question. Why do people stay? And the first thing that I realized was there's no one reason. So I didn't really get the answer to my question. There is no one reason. but it's all about power and control. That abuser is really there to control that person. Now, it doesn't always even have to do with physical abuse. Sometimes it's mental abuse. We'll go into all of that stuff. But, and I'll never know why my grandmother didn't leave. She passed away over 35 years ago from a brain injury. I truly think you can only, she was physically abused and mentally abused and all of the above. I think you can only be abused so many times.
Mhm.
But it gave me a mission of, I want to raise hope. So that was the first thing, raising hope to these people, because I know there's a different way of living. I know that there is. I've seen it. So my mom and I started collecting handbags because my grandmother always held her handbag very close to her with all of her like necessities in there. And we started just asking for donations. And then I was having people message me through Facebook saying, "Where do you live? I'll drop it off on your porch." And that's how it started. And then we realized that there's so much more that needs to be done beyond handbags, which obviously that is real. And we'll go into that. But that's how the base of it started. That's why the handbag is so significant. That's actually what we start at to open the conversation, not only with people, but with businesses, organizations, women's groups. I mean, we collaborate and partner with all kinds of groups just so we can get that conversation open. Because if the conversation's not open, nobody's getting to safety. Nobody's going to talk.
Exactly. And I love the piece of the conversation opener, right? So women relate to handbags, right? It's something tangible. We get it. We walk out of the house. We have even if it's just a crossbite, we have something somehow with us.
Right.
Mhm.
Aisling, what drove you to get involved? I'll be really honest, and because that's who I am. There's a lot of organizations out there, right? And this is an organization that Kathleen started in the States. You're in Ireland. What drove you, and what was your driving force to get involved in this?
I just loved how easy it was to actually make a difference and to get involved. So Kathleen and I met 2 or 3 years ago. I think it might be now 3 years ago, maybe a little bit more. Gosh, time flies, right? And we met like this via Zoom, and I kind of had an awareness of what Hopefull Handbags was vaguely through the network I was part of or am part of. And at one point, I said to Kathleen, we were on a 24-hour networking thing to raise money for Hopefull Handbags, and I said, I'd like to find out more about this, but I don't know how I can help where I am. And we had a call, and she was like, well, you could just start collecting bags and filling them. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe I could. So we kind of just dove into that and started doing that in 2021. Oh my gosh, that's 4 years actually.
Yeah,
Time flies when you're
longer
having
than I
fun.
realized. But I guess I'm passionate about it because I'm pretty confident there are some people in my family still living in abusive situations. I'm aware of levels of abuse 1 generation, 2 generations back. But I'm also aware that I actually have not just female people in my life that have experienced abuse, but actually male people in my family who have experienced abuse. And I'm not going to obviously share anybody else's story, but knowing that it is something that is real and does happen, and knowing how hard it is to start a conversation and how hard it is for people to openly talk about the topic. I think you were mentioning about the bags. It is one of the most powerful things that we do is when we are in a community and we have different people, volunteers coming in. Sometimes we're in a community center, sometimes it's in a library, and we're like doing these bag packs. When people's hands are busy and when they're not having to sit and stare in somebody's eyes and have a conversation about something really difficult, a taboo subject still to this day, it makes it so easy for people to share. Like people's their heads are down, they're packing the bag. Like I create like assembly lines, and conversation just flows, and it makes it not uncomfortable to talk
So
about.
people open up from a
People
natural
really
state of
open
just
up.
being together.
Exactly. And people tell stories of people that they know. And I host a lot of big events, and I'll often do an example in the room and say, okay, like I'll count how many tables there are. And let's say there's 12 tables. I'm getting 4 tables of attendees to stand up. And I'm like, guys, look, this is the amount of people who are physically in this room who have literally experienced this firsthand, or know one person away from them who have. And that shocks people still. It still shocks people. And actually, that's only what we know that's reported. I reckon it's closer to 2/3 of every room that we're in.
I was going to say, and what you're sharing is, I have a feeling, is what's reported, not what
Mm-hmm.
is true.
Yeah.
Because I know people who have experienced abuse and it's not talked about, it's never talked about.
There's still a lot of shame, I think, and guilt and trauma attached to the conversation for so many people. But we are creating spaces to remove that barrier to the conversation where people can just share. I've had people come and help me for hours on end and not say anything and pack loads of bags, and then at the end give me massive hugs and start crying and go, do you know what? I'm one of those people who wish they got one of these bags. I've been there. That's why I showed up today to help.
So I want to just get our listeners some information here. Okay, so we're talking about handbags. I know information we have not yet shared. So you do these things that you pack handbags. Like, okay, so let's get some information on the organization and what you're doing and how you're getting this out and why these bags are so important to so many people.
Yeah, so if you just take the example, like we said at the beginning, about businesses getting involved, organizations getting involved, right? So that again is opening up the conversation. People say,
Right.
oh, if we have any once loved handbags, is what we call them. If you have any of those or any new necessities, bring them, because they're going to go to domestic abuse survivors and their children. Children's a huge thing, which we'll get to as well in our organization. Okay, but domestic abuse, does that even happen around here? Or why are we talking about that? So it brings that to their brain, right? Now we're thinking about domestic abuse and they're thinking, is my relationship, am I having an okay time? Is that what mom went through? That might be, so anyway, they start thinking. Same thing with businesses. People go into a business. That's where our drop off locations are, right? So around communities, we have drop off locations, and they pick up the flyer or the pamphlet, whichever one happens to be in there, and they'll say, oh, domestic abuse. Again, we're bringing it to the forefront there. Now, I will say that people, we have no judgment here, and when they start to really follow us and see, they realize when we say no judgment, there's no judgment. Every time I think I've heard it all, I've not heard it all. Okay. So, and it is what it is. We meet people where they are. Most of the time, people will call us before they call the police station, before they call the shelter. And that's because we're not either one of those. Meaning, people have in their brains, this is not necessarily true, but if they call the police station or they call the shelter, then it's done. Like, now they're coming to my house, they're taking me away, they're taking my kids. Like, just not true. Unless, now I'm going to say that, but I mean, if there's something bad's going to happen, police are coming.
Imminent threat. If there's an imminent threat.
If there's a dangerous situation, there will be an intervention.
You're reading my mind. I'm sitting here like I know the word. Okay.
We all read each other's minds here.
Oh, thank goodness. So,
thank goodness we all need a team.
This is why we're here. But yeah, so that is, now if that's a situation and we have to say, hey, listen, and get them involved right away, obviously safety's first, always safety's first. But then from there, so that's how the handbags come in. It's not just that we're donating this handbag, in opening of the conversation. The other way, and I've got so many stories about this, but I'll just give you some examples. Sometimes we do things, I call them awareness events, right? Somebody's a community event and they invite us to go and bring a basket. We have donation baskets. They invite us to do that. And you'll see people walking around, sometimes couples. And I mean, when you've been doing this a long time, you can usually spot things that are a little fishy. But when they walk by, they see the handbags. And sometimes you can see, typically it's guys, but we do help guys as well, right? So typically guys are the abuser, but that's not always the case, which I'd love to get into as well. But you can see that abuser, whether it be woman or man, pulling them away if they see something that says domestic abuse. But what we do is, you get the pamphlet and you say, hey, listen, we're collecting once loved handbags. If you have any, if you ever have any, feel free to contact us, donate them. And I have had numerous of those people call me. Sometimes it's the next day, sometimes it's the next week. But also it lets the guard down of the person that they're with that wants to drag them away from this table because it says something about domestic abuse. So that's another way that the handbags open up the conversation.
And you pack the handbags with what? When you're referring to packing the handbags, give a little insight there.
I think, Ivy, if you think about how you wake up every morning, how you start and finish your day, and you think about all of the things that we all absolutely take for granted, the things that we do without even thinking about, and well, most of us, we wake up, we'll go to the bathroom, brush our teeth. You need a toothbrush and toothpaste. You take a shower. You got your shower gel, shampoo, conditioner, gel, get out, deodorant, maybe some body cream. Maybe you have a facial cleansing routine and makeup and brush your hair, put your hair up, whatever it is that you use, those basic things that we all use on a typical daily basis to
Right.
start and finish our day, those are some of the items that go in the bags. On top of that, notebooks and pens always go in. Really important that there's a notebook and pen in there, because there's a lot of downloading and journaling that needs to take place once the families reach their pods and their safe spaces, as well as taking down information of what next steps might look like. Things like, we'll always like to try and add in some really nice things too. So we love when people donate like unopened like perfumes and makeups, and we get samples from companies of makeups and perfumes, and
Totally.
fluffy socks, a
So,
nice
so
lip
we can
balm,
feel
a
like
hand
people
cream.
again. It helps us feel like
Yes, those
women. It
beautiful
gets like
things.
people again. That to put ourselves, one of the biggest things of people who've gone through situations like that is our confidence, our inner confidence, our how we
Hmm.
look at ourselves is very critical. And
Absolutely.
I think that sometimes we have to rebuild the outside a little bit to start rebuilding the inside.
Absolutely. And it just starts. Sometimes people don't find us the way Kathleen described. Sometimes they find us when they get into their safe pod, they get into
Okay.
the refuge. And that beautiful handbag, and for those who can't see us, or those just listening on audio, Kathleen has a handbag in the background of the video that has a beautiful little Hopefull Handbags tag on the outside. Inside of that bag, not only are the essentials in there, but there's also a handwritten message of hope to every recipient of a bag, so that they know a human is out there really wishing them love, and that these bags have been packed with love. And on the outside, there are these little tags with our information on there too. And they can contact us there for future support through our other programs like Shine and New. And I'll let Kathleen talk a little bit about that, because you've touched on some of the things that we do in Shine and New as well. But a really, really, really key part of this is, if you are a male or female, whoever, and you've gone into this pod in this safe space, you do not have to open that door again until you're ready. You don't have to open that door and ask, could I get 3 toothbrushes and some toothpaste? Do you have any sanitary supplies? Is there any chance of getting some clean underwear for myself and my children? And these are basic things that we use, and it's putting hope, dignity, and control back in their hands in a very, very simple and very, very powerful way. And that's where that journey to hope begins. They take that little tag outside the bag, and when they're ready to transition, or even while they're in refuge, they can contact us through the website for additional supports like the programs that we run. Kathleen, do you want to go through?
Yeah, share a little
Yeah.
bit about the program. So I have a few minutes left, and I wanted to make
Okay.
sure
So
that got out because I was
Fine,
also
and you.
wanted.
Hmm.
There was also one other thing is as you share, and Kathleen, I'm sure you're going to touch on this, what you do in the dating world, because that to me, when I learned about that, I literally like hit my heart. If we can educate and intervene from there, what
correct.
can we prevent in the long run?
We talk about dating abuse all the time. We have a part of it on our website. We talk about what is the first typical sign of abuse in a relationship with dating. It's isolation. Isolation is the first. And again, we don't have a ton of time, so I can't go into all that right now, but I'm going to tell we do. We focus in on that not only with the college and university students, because we go into colleges and universities, but now with all these dating apps, everybody's out there dating, it seems like. Maybe they always were. We just never really knew it. That is a space that I would like to get more into actually with these dating app spaces, because what you're saying, I mean, I'm in my 50s, so I know my friends that are single are out there dating. They're 60, they're 70, seriously.
Sure.
And I hear some of the stories. I'm like, run fast. I mean, no. But anyway, okay. So Shine and New, those are our two programs. They have acronyms. We had to come up with all these acronyms because when you're applying for things or explaining to people, S is for safety. Always number one is safety. Is the person
Yep.
safe? H is for habits. So when they come into our programs, we work on habits. We work on what are their habits they have? What are the habits holding them back? What are the ones moving them forward? And we start working on habits. That's where the 30-day self-perception makeover comes in. One of the bases of everything we do with every survivor and their children, if they're teenagers or preteens, is we work on what they think and feel about themselves, because that is the base of everything in our lives. It dictates our decisions. It dictates the chances we take, the choices we make, and the relationships we stay in and the ones we leave, right? And whether you've been
Very true.
And whether you've been through abuse or not, everybody has those downtime. So we always work on that. I is for independence. I mean, this is a new way of living too. N is for new way of living. This is a whole new way of living now. Their self-perception's getting healthy. They have some independence. What do I do with the independence? Some of them are scared. You know, they're used to having somebody there, even if they were being abused in some way. They were used to having that person there to fix the door.
Help make decisions.
Something. E is for empowerment. And that's just in general, right? We want them to feel and know that they can do these things. Now, the new program is within the Shine program, and it's navigating employment wins. That's something that we work with. Every one of our survivors will have a job within 6 weeks. You have to.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'd almost say, like, how could you promise that? Like, I'll always say, like, seeing people, and I've worked with various organizations, how can we help that? How can we help make that happen? That seems like almost an impossibility.
But there's jobs everywhere. People are always hiring, and we will help them not only with their resume and the interview skills, but we literally go on and start looking for jobs with them. I want you to apply here. It can be you're stocking shelves at TJ
It doesn't matter what the job is. The
just need that first job.
It's not, you get a job and then you build a career.
Correct. Because you have to have something. Statistically, globally, over 85% of survivors go back because they don't have the funds to support themselves or their kids. So this is a non-negotiable. Now we're here, and this is why we raise money, is because we're here to help with anything long-term sustainability, right? Because we know you got to get over these hurdles. We get that, but we're not here to support you financially. You can support yourself financially, and I know you can. So that's how we do it. It is a full on, I mean, some of our survivors are actually within our organization now and help us, and probably some of them would come and just explain the whole thing to you and how it works. I've been told numerous times, myself and other people in our organization, including Aisling, that we just give loving pushes. You know what I mean? Like, it's not all, you know, I understand you've been through trauma. We deal with all these things are dealt with in their own time. But when it comes to certain things that are non-negotiables, that's a non-negotiable. And we have to work through that. And that's something that is not done within every domestic abuse organization, because so many times, depending on the grants that you're getting from, typically it's from the government, there's something called the empowerment model. The empowerment model, which we do not follow, even though we're empowering, I think we're empowering more, is because the first thing on the empowerment model says that you cannot tell a survivor anything that they have to do. And so that takes that out. We're already knocked out right there, because we tell them within the first 6 weeks, you have to have a job. They will have a job. They will have a job. And I know we're running out of time, but that's kind of a big overview of how this works and how we make sure that each one of we concentrate on the kids. I mean, because
you have to look at the whole picture.
The whole picture.
As we come to a close, and I have to ask this, in the years that you've been doing this, Kathleen, that Aisling, that you have been involved, and this has become such a priority, because literally when Aisling and I, we were first talking, you know, you were navigating homework because we have a significant time difference, and we were like, we're just going to talk. Like, we just want to talk. I want to learn. I want to understand. What has surprised you in this journey?
I think for me, it's the world and the society that we live in. It still surprises me sometimes how unwilling people are to commit to supporting any, not just our nonprofit, but any nonprofit out there. But what holds people back? That still surprises me sometimes. Especially considering some people that you'll meet along the way, and you'll know, that's a drop in the ocean for that person, and they could literally save a life. I explained to an audience recently, in Ireland, we can buy bulk SIM cards for phones to stop, so that survivors can keep their phones. You would change out the SIM card so they can't be tracked, right? It only costs €5. So that's probably less than $4 US, right? And I go, do you think it's worth €5 to save a person's life? Yes. Okay. It's time to give. You know, sometimes it surprises me that people don't realize how easily and with such a small amount you could literally potentially save a life.
And that's where our ask for our listeners this year is $10.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Kathleen, if we have listeners who want to give $10, what would it look like?
What would that do?
Yeah.
Or that would do a lot. I mean, you think about not only the necessities, but that builds up as well. If everybody listening gave $10, we'd be able to have a safe space for a night or two for a mother and parent and their children to stay, which we call pop-up shelters, which is really a safe hotel room. A lot of times shelters are full, and they're full with repeats. This conversation that the three of us are having literally could go on for, just so you know, there is a lot to talk about.
And there is a lot to talk about. So let me jump there. How can our listeners learn more?
Okay.
Go to hopefullhandbags.org and click on the Ways to Give tab on the website, and know that even just $2,000 can put 6 families into shelter for a week.
Right.
That's
and then also those safe, if they're already safe, because we meet people where they are. So like Aisling said, sometimes they're in the domestic abuse situation. That's going to look totally different on how we're working through the process as to, are they already out staying with family and friends? Are they in the shelter? They just don't know how to move forward. So there's always those different things, but we have to have funding in order to support these people, because they need stuff. There's things they need. If we can get them to safety and we can get them an apartment for a month until they start taking over their own rent, and we're kind of helping them along the way. Kids need beds. Kids need, necessity, all these little things that they need. But also, if it's somebody that wants to get involved, contact us through our website, or we have a phone number on there. Well, if you're in the United States, and you can also do us through WhatsApp. So you don't have to be in the United States, but we'll set up a call with you or a Zoom. And
I'm going to say Kathleen and Aisling are the two most approachable. I mean, we got a connection. We just jumped on the phone and we just started talking. It's like, okay, let's do this. And everybody was just, yeah, let's do this. Let's make a difference. Let's learn. Let's educate. And what I'm loving about the way you got both work is how easy it is to communicate with both of you. And when we open streams of communication, we can make such a difference, because then we can do what's next and what's next and what's next, just change people's lives. And I thank you so much. Domestic abuse is heartbreaking. It has a ripple effect through families and children. And if we can make listeners a small dent into making a difference, let's do that as a community. So if this episode was helpful to you, if you found it interesting, pass it forward to somebody else who would find it interesting. Just share it forward. Share the organization Hopefull Handbags. Share your $10. All good. Let's think about what you can do. Let's think about the people in our own communities, how we make a difference, and how every little thing that we do as a community has that ripple impact. Kathleen, Aisling, thank you so much for your time today, for your passion for everything you're doing. And hopefullhandbags.org is the place to go and check it out.
Thanks, Ivy.
thank you.